Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I'm Dragonfly9078, and today I'm building King Arthur from Fate. But not the usual one, this is King Arthur from Fate Prototype. After the build, be sure to check out my channel to vote for the next one in our Pride poll. So what do we want from this build? Well, this version of Arthur is very similar to the more familiar Saber from Fate's Day Night, so we'll get a lot of the same skills that she would have. Instinct, magic resistance, mana burst, that sort of thing. There are some key differences between the two, however. Saber is from the core Fate timeline and is concerned with the well-being of her kingdom, but Arthur is from a different world entirely, and he came to our timeline hunting Beast 6. So while Saber is the ideal king of Camelot, this Arthur fits more into the role of the knight errant, the hero who roams the kingdom slaying monsters. And of course he does so with his noble phantasm, Excalibur, the strongest of all holy swords. His is sealed away though, locked behind conditions placed on it by the Knights of the Round Table. He can unseal it slightly to release some of its power, but otherwise it's just a regular sword. Looking over at ability scores, I'll be doing a point buy. If you want to roll for stats, that's fine, just make sure your strength, dexterity, wisdom, and charisma are high enough to multiclass. Starting off with a 13 in strength, we wear plate armor and swing around a sword. Dexterity and constitution are both 12. Arthur's physical parameters are decently high, and we're going to be in melee with monsters. We'll make intelligence 10. Servants are already at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to knowing about recent events, and he's not just from history, he's from an entirely different world's history. He was still the ideal king in his world though, so we'll make wisdom 13 and charisma 14. Reborn is a great race for servants, since they're heroes from the past that are alive again now. Sort of. We get +2 to our strength and +1 to our dex, 2 skill proficiencies, we'll say arcana and perception, and we have a deathless nature. We don't need to eat, drink, breathe, or sleep, and we can long rest in 4 hours by slipping into our spirit form, remaining inactive but still conscious. We have advantage on death saves, as well as on saves against disease and poison, and we resist poison damage. There's also knowledge from a past life, letting us add a d6 to a skill check we make a number of times per day equal to our proficiency, as we get flashes of memory back to our time alive, and maybe even flashes of our master's memories. Arthur is a king, so noble would work for our background, but again, this is the more adventure-y version of Arthur, so I'll go with the Knight of Solamnia. We get proficiency in athletics and survival, and we'll switch one of our languages out for land vehicle proficiency thanks to our riding skill. We also get the Squire of Solamnia feat for free. Riding comes into play again here, letting us mount or dismount with only 5 feet of movement rather than half our speed, and we can make a precise strike. Once per turn, we can get advantage on a weapon attack and deal an extra 1d8 damage if we end up hitting. We can use this a number of times per day equal to our proficiency bonus, but we only actually expend a use if we land the attack. It isn't wasted if we miss. That's that round table sword training. The fact that Arthur wears heavy armor narrows us down to one of 2 starting classes, and the everything else about him narrows that too down to Paladin. We get 2 skills from the extremely limited Paladin list, I'll say Religion and Insight, and we get a Divine Sense. As an action, we can sense the presence of any fiends, celestials, or undead within 60 feet a number of times per day equal to 1 more than our charisma modifier. Servants could plausibly be classified as a type of undead, so this can tell us where our rivals are, and the divine ones almost certainly count as celestials. There's also Lay on Hands, a pool of points equal to 5 times our paladin level that refills on a long rest. We can use our action to touch a creature and expend points, healing them for that amount, or we can spend 5 points to cure a disease or poison. Saber has regenerative powers if she has access to Avalon, but I'm not entirely sure if Arthur has that. Still, if we're delving into monster dens alone to face the darkness, it would be nice to be able to patch ourselves up enough to get back out. On that note, we'll grab the Defense Fighting style, increasing our AC by 1 while we're wearing armor, so the monsters have to try a little harder to hit us. For spells at this level, Paladins prepare from their entire list, so technically we get them all, but the only 2 I want to point out are Compelled Duel, to challenge an enemy to a one-on-one fight as a knight's honor demands, giving them disadvantage on attacks against creatures other than us if they fail a wisdom save, and forcing them to make another save to move more than 30 feet from us. And with Divine Favor, we partially reveal Excalibur's glory, and let it deal an extra 1d4 radiant damage on a hit. Alternatively, we can just use our mana burst to burn our spell slots for a flare of power with Divine Smite. When we hit with a melee weapon attack, we can expend a first level spell slot to deal an additional 2d8 radiant damage. And once we get them, we can burn higher level slots, with each level above first adding an additional die, to a maximum of 5d8 for a 4th level slot. At 3rd level, our Divine Health upgrades our disease resistance to full-on disease immunity, and we'll take our Sacred Oath. Now, the restraints of the Round Table are all generally good guy type stuff. Things like the battle has to be one-on-one, or has to be against evil or for the fate of the world, that sort of thing, which lines up pretty nicely with the tenets of the Oath of Devotion. We can channel Divinity once per rest, choosing from 2 options. Turn the Unholy makes any fiends or undead within 30 feet of us run away if they fail a wisdom save, and Sacred Weapon releases some of the restraints on our sword, making it shine with golden light and letting us add our charisma modifier to our attack rolls with it, though not our damage rolls. That's okay though, we do still have Divine Smite. For Oath spells, Sanctuary uses Knightly Honor to present a flag of truce. Creatures who attack us or a creature under our protection have to make a wisdom save first. On a fail, their attack or spell has to target someone else or just go to waste. The Sanctuary lasts until the warded creature breaks the truce by attacking, dealing damage, or affecting an enemy with a spell, though weirdly that means if you're under Sanctuary and you cast Cure Wounds on an enemy, the Sanctuary breaks and you're fair game. Then Protection from Evil and Good makes it so we can't be possessed, charmed, or frightened by any aberrations, fiends, fae, celestials, elementals, or undead. And those creatures have disadvantage on attacks against us thanks to our sweet sword skills and sometimes invisible sword. Switching gears for a bit, we'll embrace our adventuring aspect by jumping over to Ranger. Animal Handling rounds off our riding skill, and we get Natural Explorer. In addition to a number of benefits to traveling over land, we get advantage on initiative, advantage on attacks against creatures who haven't acted yet during the first round of combat, and we totally ignore difficult terrain. Then Favored Enemy will make us better at hunting down and killing any monstrosities that threaten our people, as we get advantage on checks made to track or remember information about them, and our weapons deal 2 extra damage to them. Undead is another possible option, since it could affect other servants, but monstrosities tend to be the huge creatures that our Giant Beast Hunt skill applies to, like hydras, sphinxes, and monstrous dogs. Rangers get to pick a fighting style at level 2. Dueling is a fine option, but I'm going to say blind fighting, as our instinct skill is honed to a point that we can fight even while visually impaired. We get blind sight out to 10 feet, and we know where any invisible creatures are in that radius, unless they specifically hide from us. Servants tend to be faster than humans, so Long Strider gives us an extra 10 feet of movement, and we can move without provoking opportunity attacks for up to a minute with Zephyr Strike. And once before the spell ends, we can use our Mana Burst to rocket forward, increasing our speed by 30 feet for the turn, getting advantage on a weapon attack, and dealing an extra 1d8 force damage if that attack hits. Just like Paladins with their Divine Sense, 3rd level Rangers can open up their senses with Primeval Awareness, concentrating for a minute to tell where any monstrosities lurk within 5 miles. Then once we find them, we can hunt them down as, well, a hunter. We get to pick one of 3 options on how to fight monsters, and since our Giant Beast Hunt helps us fight big creatures, we'll go with Giant Killer. Whenever a creature that's at least large attacks us, we can use our reaction to attack them back, so long as they're within 5 feet of us. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that means another chance per round to use our myriad ways to stack damage on our sword attacks, like, for example, Hunter's Mark. We mark a creature as our prey, and for up to an hour, we deal an extra d6 every time we hit them with an attack, and we get advantage on checks we make to find them. That's really all I wanted from Ranger, so we'll jump back over to finish out the build as a Paladin. Our 4th level ASI rounds off our Strength and Wisdom to 16 and 14 respectively, then we get extra attack so we can attack twice in a turn. None of the 2nd level Paladin spells really fit for us, but we do get Lesser Restoration and Zone of Truth for free from our Oath. Really though, probably better to just save our 2nd level slots for Smites. 6th level is where our legendary magic resistance starts to kick in, as our Aura of Protection adds our Charisma modifier to all of our saves, as well as those of our allies within 10 feet of us. Then Aura of Devotion at 7th level grants immunity to being charmed in the same radius. Our next ASI will bump our Charisma to 16, which does boost our Aura of Protection as well. Then much like our 2nd level spells, we care more about getting 3rd level slots to smite with than actually getting 3rd level spells. Oath spells at this level are Dispel Magic, which I suppose can be fitting if we're using our magic resistance to break a spell put on us, and Beacon of Hope, a neat little cleric exclusive that gives creatures within 30 feet advantage on wisdom and death saves, and lets them heal the max amount possible from any healing they receive. It's a cool spell, but it's really not something Arthur does. Leave it be, save the slots for the smites. Aura of Courage at 10th level gives creatures within 10 feet of us immunity to fear, which does of course include us. An improved Divine Smite saves us a spell slot by eliminating the need to cast Divine Favor, as all of our melee weapons now deal an extra d8 of radiant damage whenever we hit with them. We'll boost our Constitution to 14 at 12th level, then at 13th level we'll get 4th level spell slots to burn for the biggest Divine Smites we can get. Oh, and we get some Oath spells too. Guardian of Faith isn't really our jam, it summons a Spectral Guardian that stays in one place and attacks folks who come nearby, but Freedom of Movement letting us escape from restraints and preventing us from being slowed down or paralyzed is pretty cool. Cleansing Touch helps us save some slots on Dispel Magic, since we can use our action to end a spell on ourself or a creature we touch a number of times per day equal to our Charisma modifier. And Purity of Spirit saves even more by putting us under the effect of protection from evil and good permanently. Now there's a few places we could put our last ASI. Charisma is likely the most optimal choice since it gives us a whole heap of benefits, most notably our Aura of Protection, but I'm going to put it towards making Constitution to 16 to get Arthur's A+ rank Endurance. Our capstone is the 17th level of Paladin for 5th level spells. At this level, fulfilling the requirements of our Oath of Devotion meets the restraints of the Round Table and allows us access to Excalibur, in the form of Flame Strike. We blast a 10-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder with Divine Light, dealing 4d6 fire and 4d6 radiant to any creatures in the area who fail a dexterity save, half on a success. We can also cause our sword to shine like the sacred relic it is with Holy Weapon. For up to an hour, it sheds bright light within 30 feet and dim light for another 30, and deals an extra 2d8 radiant damage on a hit. Plus, we can use our bonus action to dismiss the spell and unleash a burst of light. Creatures of our choice within 30 feet of our blade have to make a Constitution save or take 4d8 radiant damage and go blind for a full minute. We do also get Commune from our Oath, which lets us ask questions of a god, or maybe of the Holy Grail I suppose, but that's a lot less fun than sword beams. Now that the build is complete, let's take a look and see what we have done. Well, to start, we're crazy resilient. Setting aside our 19 AC and average of 175 HP, we get +3 to all of our saves, we're immune to disease, fear, charming, and a large chunk of possession, and we can use our action to purge ourselves of a poison or spell. We've also got resistance to poison and advantage on death saves, as well as a not insignificant amount of healing, and certain creatures have permanent disadvantage to attack us. We're not quite up to Avalon levels of invulnerability, but we're pretty damn close. Our damage output is also very solid, with every strike dealing at least 2d8 thanks to improved Divine Smite, and multiple spells and abilities that add extra damage dice. Especially notable are Zephyr Strike and the Squire of Solamnia's Piercing Strikes, as being able to get advantage on attacks is huge for Paladins, since we can also just dump a spell slot for a massive Divine Smite, all of which is doubled if we get a crit. If I had to pick a weakness for the build, it would definitely be that we have next to no ranged options. Flame Strike is solid, but we only get 2 5th level spell slots per day, so beyond that we're left with trying to close the distance as fast as possible with Zephyr Strike and Longstrider. And this is more a criticism of the game itself than a weakness with this specific build, but there really isn't that much that's more effective on larger creatures. There's plenty of things that are less effective or just flat out don't work on larger targets, usually things that are strength based that the bigger dudes can just break out of, but other than our giant killer, I couldn't find anything that benefited from creatures being at least large. Of course I could have missed something. If I did, let me know, I'd love to hear about it. But it does mean that for a character like this, whose niche is fighting big things, we're a little limited on our options. Thank you for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed the build. Head on over to my community tab if you want to vote for the next character for me to do. This week is our Pride Edition poll between Blitz and Stolas from Hell of a Boss, Sailors Uranus and Neptune from Sailor Moon, Ed and Steed from Our Flag Means Death, and our runner-up from last year, Korra and Asami from The Legend of Korra. If you have any feedback or suggestions for characters you'd like to see me build, please leave them in the comments below and they could show up in a future poll. Leave a like or subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks again for watching. I will see y'all later.